Biden's affirmative action Supreme Court pick, egregious racist overstep or long-standing tradition? Let's get into it on the Wright Brothers. Howdy y'all, welcome to the Wright Brothers. I am Trey Felder. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to be discussing President Biden's apparent bent to put a black female judge for the first time ever on the Supreme Court bench. Now, this has prompted a host of reactions from both the left and the right, most notably on the right, because there are several on the right side of the aisle that feel that this could be quite possibly a racist, egregious overstep by the federal government by specifying not only the race, but also the gender of the person that will sit on the highest court in the land. And there's quite an argument to be made that that is what it is. In fact, it could be viewed as borderline unconstitutional when you look at at the laws that govern hiring practices across the country. You can't specify that you want a black male this or a white female that for any position, or risk some severe reprisals from authorities. It's a little bit different though when it comes to the highest court in the land, and I will explain to you why. This is actually nothing new. If you go back to 1980, President Ronald Reagan, a Republican, y'all might recall. I say some of y'all might recall because that was before my time. I was born in 1988, but nevertheless, I digress. President Reagan made a campaign promise to appoint the highest qualified female that he could find to sit on the Supreme Court. And now some people have gone into a few semantics as well. He didn't specify that it would be his next pick or something of that nature. That's really splitting hairs at this point. There was a very calculated reason behind Reagan's move, and that was because he was struggling when it came to female support at the time in his campaign. He's also trying to recover from a little bit of a gaffe earlier in the campaign trail. So by pledging to nominate a female for the first time to the Supreme Court, he was in effect trying to close that gap among the female constituency. And eventually we ended up with Justice Sandra Day O'Connor becoming the first female on the United States Supreme Court. And I'm actually going to go take a step further beyond just the Reagan example. If you think back to the confirmations that President Trump had, of course, he had three, which is quite a few for a sitting president. He had Justice Neil Gorsuch, he had Brett Kavanaugh, and also Amy Coney Barrett. Now, the Amy Coney Barrett situation was a little bit interesting because she was nominated directly after the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, Amy Coney Barrett was not a stranger to the short lists that had been put out for some of Trump's other picks, but it's interesting that it was almost a foregone conclusion that Amy Coney Barrett would be the one to get the strongest push for nomination. And I actually mentioned on this very channel that it kind of didn't sit right with me personally that we were pushing a female almost exclusively to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as if that seat could only belong to a female. The same argument that's being made by the right now could have been made back then, as in, why not just open it up to anyone and hopefully the best, most qualified person gets the nomination. That's not how politics works at this level. That's not how nominations work at this level. Let's go back to President Biden's pledge. It was also a campaign pledge when his campaign was basically gasping for air ahead of the South Carolina primaries, and he made his vow that if he won the nomination and eventually ascended to the presidency, that he would make it a priority to nominate a black female judge to the Supreme Court. And of course, we all know how everything unspooled from there. And this is essentially President Biden making good on a campaign promise at a time when, frankly, he desperately needs all of the good PR that he can get. So how do we respond to how this has all gone down? I think it's important for people on the right side of the aisle, conservatives especially, to take a step back and maybe pick this fight a little bit more wisely. Let's consider the facts. This is not a new phenomenon. Having an affirmative action style pick for the Supreme Court. This has been going on since before I was born, as I just said. And also, this is not a reason to sit here and try to paint President Biden into a corner as if, you know, he's doing something completely unprecedented, because like I said, this is a long-standing tradition. So instead of attacking the nature of the hire, why don't we get into the substance of who is actually being nominated? And I'm actually going to read off a couple of names coming from as reported by the Washington Post last week that are considered de facto frontrunners for the position. And what I'm reading the names off for is not necessarily just to single these people out, but also just to give us a head start in trying to figure out what these people could possibly bring to the Supreme Court. Because we know from beyond a shadow of a doubt that President Biden will nominate a liberal-leaning judge to the bench. Obviously, we're just replacing Justice Stephen Breyer, who announced that he's stepping down. So the political druthers should be a foregone conclusion. What we should be looking for is how qualified are these women to even garner attention in the first place, and is it someone that we would want to competently sit on the highest court in the land? So here we go from the Washington Post. Like I said, the first one is Ketanji Brown Jackson. The next one that we have is Leandra Kruger from California. We also have J. Michelle Childs. We have Anita Earls, who is kind of on the outside looking in just due to age. You have to consider age when it comes to Supreme Court justices, of course. Wilhelmina Wright, or Mimi Wright, from Minnesota, and Melissa Murray. So those are just a couple names off the short list as reported by Washington Post. Of course, there have been other lists floating around in the media. You can go find them as reported by MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and the like. The important thing is not necessarily the names themselves, but instead of reacting to the nature of the Supreme Court pick, why don't we have a little bit more substance to our arguments? Why don't we get into who these women are, and are they supremely qualified, pun intended, to sit on the highest court in the land? We may not agree, we probably will not agree on this channel with many of their druthers, but that does not necessarily mean that these people will not be fully competent. Is it unfortunate that it's only being limited to a certain strata of the population? Certainly, but that is not the fight that conservatives should be looking to pick right now. In fact, we need to move beyond the semantics of the pick, as I said earlier, and try to get into the nitty-gritty of why these women made the list, and which ones do you think will be the best one to replace Justice Stephen Breyer. And honestly, the makeup of the court is not going to change past here. Hint, the fact that we're not talking about court packing at this juncture is a very good thing. So let's keep it that way at least. So let me know what you think about the Supreme Court pick. If you still are doubling down on the argument that it's extremely racist and out of bounds, I'd love to hear your take on that, and obviously buttress it up against the previous picks by Reagan and Trump and the like. Or if you agree with me and say, hey, maybe we need to take a bigger picture approach to this and kind of do our due diligence on the names popping up on these short lists, I would love to hear from you. So would my brother. You can find us all over social media. You can find me on Twitter at TBirdTrey_10. That's TBirdTrey with a 3, not an E. You can find Damani on Facebook. You can find him on YouTube. You can find him on TikTok. You can find him on Twitter. All of the above. We love interacting with all of y'all that care to interact with our videos. And of course, a big shout out to our Patreon members. We can't do any of this without you. We thank you so much for your support. And I'd also like to give a big old shout out to my wife. She is awesome, and I can't do any of this without her support and my two amazing kids. They are the joy of my life and the reason I get up every morning. So I hope all of y'all have someone in your lives that keeps you moving as well. We love to have you on the channel. And until the next time, y'all take it easy.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.